For a little fight.
Yeah.
Oh, John.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting for May 23rd, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, let's remain standing in honor of those who serve us here and abroad, protecting this great nation. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we start with public comment. I actually have a proclamation tonight to start public comment off. Is Thomas Ryan here? Thomas? Hi, Thomas. Come on up. Are you comfortable having a seat right here?
Yeah.
All righty, Thomas. So, Thomas, it's my understanding that you've received an honor as this award is presented to Thomas Ryan, a U.S. military child, in recognition of extraordinary courage, resilience, and strength in your community at home and in academics and in extracurricular activities with your parents' 2021 military deployment and recovery. So, one, we want to congratulate you on that. The second thing is what the town does is we have something we call a proclamation, which I would like to read to you. In honor of Thomas Ryan, whereas Thomas Ryan is a senior at Londonderry High School, and whereas Thomas's mother, Maura Ryan, has served our country in the United States Army and has been deployed to many parts of the world, whereas this is a program called Our Military Kids, which celebrates the accomplishments and sacrifices made by children and our military members as a result of their parents' service. Whereas this year, out of hundreds of entrants around the country, only 18 kids were selected to receive an award, with Thomas being one of them. Thomas is an active volunteer in our community, having volunteered in our town elections, serving as a member of the Green Team, and having spoken with the state legislature in Concord to raise awareness about autism. Thomas is also an extraordinary Londonderry Lancer, serving as a member of the ROTC program and the varsity rowing team. So therefore, the town council wishes to recognize Thomas Ryan of Londonderry for his accomplishments, his volunteerism, and his courage, especially during and in light of his mother's deployment. Thomas, we applaud you for being recognized the 2022 Courageous Kid in our Military Kids program, signed here today on May 23rd by the town council. Congratulations, Thomas. Thomas, I understand that the town clerk is going to present this to her, so she's right behind you.
Absolutely.
And Maura, thank you for your service.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we begin every meeting with public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the council under that heading now? Yes? Wherever you would like, whatever you're comfortable with. Just name and address.
My name is Maura Ryan, 2 Snowberry Hollow, Londonderry. I just wanted to say something about the last meeting where you talked about the dog issue. In the military, we're taught about pre-assault signals. I know Councilperson Paul had said that, sometimes people try to grab dogs or do things with dogs. There are pre-signals from dogs, so I wanted to see if it was possible, if we did a YouTube video or something for the town about dogs when they're getting ready to, attack, to give people the signals, because they do certain things like putting their ears back and, and we could explain it, because a lot of people don't know about that with dogs. You have to kind of have an awareness. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, perhaps between our 2 K-9 officers and our animal control officer, perhaps they could bring something to us that we could take a look at.
Yep.
That'd be great. Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you.
Anyone else under public comment? Yes, please come forward. I just need to get, I just have to have you on the mic so that when we take minutes, name and address.
Yes, I'm Kim Streitmatter, and I'm from Pine Street in Londonderry. And this is the time we would talk about anything that's on the agenda for tonight?
Well, things that are on the agenda tonight, we have two public hearings. One is about poultry.
Yep.
Or chickens, as some people like to say. One is about groundwater, and that's usually when we usually entertain public comment during those sessions on
Okay.
those particular subjects. If there's something else you would like to talk about, now would be appropriate.
Nope, I'll wait for that session.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to make sure, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Leonard Evans from West Road in Londonderry. I'd like to bring up a couple of things about chickens.
Well, sir, would you?
Am I
would you-
too early?
So would you mind if we waited till the public hearing, so I have
Oh,
everyone
sure.
who wants to talk about poultry and chickens at the same time? Would that be okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I didn't know what the
No
procedure
worries.
was.
Hey, I understand completely. I
All
just,
right, thank you.
thank you for coming up. Anyone else for public comment other than chickens and groundwater? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, public comment is now closed. We're going to move to a public hearing for ordinance 2022-03, an amendment to the Londonderry zoning ordinance, section 4.2.1.4, relative to keeping poultry in an AR1 district, to be presented by Ms. Gandia. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Ms. Gandia.
Mr. Chairman, according to the agenda, Henry Herndon was going to be speaking during public comment. Has that changed?
Is he here?
Yes, right here.
Oh, well, I can, please rescind the motion for public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion rescinded. I was waiting for someone to say something if they were here for public comment.
My
Thank you, Mike.
apologies, I thought it was a separate agenda item and not public comment.
No worries. So Henry, Craig Putman's not here?
No, he's not.
Please proceed. Public comment is back open.
I have some materials, there's a deck and a letter.
Okay,
6
great.
or 5 of them, one for each counselor.
I think you guys already have these, but just in case.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Henry Herndon. I'm here on behalf of Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which is a new public nonprofit recently incorporated in the state of New Hampshire, to extend an invitation to the town of Londonderry to join as a member. And I guess I want to be conscientious of time considerations. There's a bit of a presentation here, and I can expedite that to the degree that is appropriate. But would 5 to 10 minutes be appropriate to discuss this? Yep. So as I mentioned, my name is Henry Herndon, here on behalf of a public nonprofit, Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. And I'm going to move through a brief slide deck with some information about the organization. And really what we're here to discuss is what's been discussed with the Energy Efficiency Task Force already and Councilor Deb Paul. Membership, Londonderry's potential membership with Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, and what that would mean and what the benefits of that would be for the town of Londonderry.
Okay, please proceed.
So this first graphic you see on the screen, this is just summarizing the current membership of the nonprofit organization, which is established for communities by communities. So this is an entity that is governed by its member cities and towns. Each member city and town that you see listed on the slide appoints a director and an alternate to the board of directors. So they are the governance and the decision-making of the organization, and there are currently 18 municipalities and 1 county member who have joined by adopting the Joint Powers Agreement, which I will discuss as well. That is the intermunicipal contract that creates the coalition and includes its bylaws, the bylaws for the nonprofit corporation. Next slide. These are the officers and the leadership of the organization. And as you can see, they include Assistant Mayor Clifton Belo from the City of Lebanon, Deputy City Managers, Energy Managers from the City of Nashua, municipal staff, municipal officials, Energy Committee members, so appointees from the member communities. And these are the individuals who serve on the board of directors and oversee the organization. And on the next slide, I'll really talk about what Community Power is and what the organization does and can do for the town of Londonderry. So as a result of legislation passed a couple of years back by the New Hampshire General Court, there is a new opportunity called Community Power in the state of New Hampshire. This is an opportunity where New Hampshire cities, towns, and counties can procure electricity on behalf of their residents and businesses and provide related services. So it is a program that if the town of Londonderry were to implement it, you could become the default energy supplier for electricity for the town. And what that means is it's really three pieces. It's a pooled procurement of electricity, so economies of scale, bulk purchasing, where all your residents and businesses pool their buying power to get better rates and better choices. That power is then delivered by the same utility company, Eversource. They continue to control the poles and wires in the grid, and they deliver that power that you as a community are purchasing in bulk. And then on the receiving end, communities benefit from value-added programs and services. That could be lower rates. That could be more options for customers. Some customers may want to choose local power or renewable power, or just the cheapest power. But there are a number of benefits that can come through this community power bulk purchasing. Importantly, if the town were to implement this program, it'd be entirely voluntary. Any customer could opt out and go back to getting their Eversource power if they would like. But the bottom line is this is an opportunity to reduce energy rates for your residents and businesses and implement other innovations if that's of interest to the town. The RSA is listed there. It's RSA 53E. Moving to the next slide. So there are a number of benefits which I sort of touched on, but number one, local control, really putting the town of Londonderry in the driver's seat of what do you want to achieve with your energy goals? Do you want to lower rates? Do you want to develop more local sources of power for your community? Lower costs. We see other markets in New York, Massachusetts, and California that have similar legislation, delivering power at lower costs than their utilities. We see the potential to build renewable energy and buy renewable energy if that's of interest to communities, but it's in no way sort of required. But there is that greater optionality, and then other potential benefits as well. This is a little bit of a messy slide, so I'll just be quick and sort of try to hit the bottom line here. Membership with the coalition has two phases. The first phase is no cost, no risk. It's merely having a seat at the table of the statewide nonprofit that is developing and launching programs, so you can share information and learn from your neighboring communities. If the town of Londonderry were to adopt the Joint Powers Agreement, join the coalition, there's no cost, there's no risk, there's no commitment. The only cost is you would appoint a member of the council, a member of the committee, a staff person, whoever you would choose from your community to attend board meetings, so monthly board meetings, and participate in the decision-making of the organization. So that's sort of phase one. Down the line, later on, after you've done a lot of learning, the town has the opportunity to actually initiate a program and roll all your customers into new energy, lower rates that you're choosing. At that point in time, that's another decision point down the line. I'm going to sort of skip the next slide and just go to the next one. Just three quick points on this. There's sort of, if you wanted to take advantage of this legislation and implement Londonderry Community Power, sort of three key things you'd have to do, or you could do. One is join the coalition to plug into that statewide network of learning. The second would be to designate that committee as responsible for developing your plan that will sort of outline the parameters of your program as required by the law. And then the third is you'd have to bring that plan back to town council to approve it for authorization. So those are those three stars on the slide here. And then the final slide, the Joint Powers Agreement. I have a copy of this agreement, which I'm going to leave here for the town manager, who I understand is not here presently. But to join the coalition, if it's of interest to the town, what we would recommend is that the town manager would review the Joint Powers Agreement and sort of ensure it's in the best interests of the town of Londonderry. And then the town council would authorize the town manager to execute that agreement, as the other 19 municipal members have done thus far. And again, that just details the structure of the organization and the bylaws and how it will function in the interest of its members. So with that, I'd be pleased to take any questions from the council, and I appreciate your time.
Lisa, do we have someone else we were talking to about something similar to this?
I was just thinking the same thing, but I can't remember what the parameters were.
It was another organization that
It was
was,
a for-profit, which is different. It's a business making money off of the people, where this is a nonprofit
Yeah,
by
I
the
couldn't
communities, for
remember
the
the name of the
communities.
organization.
It was about a year ago, too, I think.
So one of the things that's kind of interesting about this is, if we put something like this in and we move forward and eventually get our solar array in, we can feed into it, and then we can become the aggregate, and which would be more profitable for the town, because we would be selling part of the energy to them to use to us, for us.
anyone else?
I do have a question. You mentioned on one of the slides regarding the phases of application. You mentioned phase one, the coalition membership, which you stated that there was no cost or except for having someone appointed on the board. But one thing that I didn't hear, you mentioned the second phase. Is there a cost to the community or to the town for that phase?
So the cost of the operations of the coalition, procuring electricity, managing all of the back end, which is what the coalition will do, there is a cost, and that is paid for not through taxpayer dollars, but through the electricity supply rate. So all the customers in Londonderry, they'll receive a mailer. It'll say, "Welcome to Londonderry Community Power. Check the box if you want to opt out." And they'll get a new supply rate that, in all likelihood, is cheaper than Eversource's, and then a little piece of that energy supply rate pays for the operations.
So this was, the nonprofit and the coalition was formed in 2001, correct?
Sorry, 2021, just last
Thank
October.
you. My apologies. 2021. Do you have, is there anyone that's already in phase two? And do you have any data, historical data of like the price per kilowatt hour or whatever, any of that statistics?
No one is in phase two yet. We're waiting on the state and the Public Utility Commission to finish its rulemaking process, which should occur this summer, and we anticipate the first programs will launch in spring of next year. So no data from New Hampshire, only data from other states that have shown lower rates.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone from the Conservation Commission want to chirp in on this? Get their feedback?
Thank you, Councilor Butler, for the invitation. Just to elaborate a little
Excuse
further
me,
on the.
excuse me, young man, name and
Oh,
address.
sorry. It's Mike Speltz. Serve on the Energy Task Force, and I live at 18 Sugar Plum Lane in Londonderry.
Thank you.
To further elaborate on Laura's answer, there was a briefing, you remembered correctly, that talked about coming into the community and basically managing our power supply. That was, as Deb pointed out, a private entity. So that was I guess you would call it a coalition of one. So there was just, they may have been able to recruit other towns, but they were just talking to us as a single town that would enter into a contract with an organization to manage their power. In the same way the coalition is. The advantage of this is we're spreading the costs over a much wider group of ratepayers. So arguably, all other things being equal, it would be cheaper to go with the coalition because there's more members and you can spread the overhead cost of the management of it among more ratepayers. But I would urge the council to at least task the town manager when he gets back with looking into this in some detail. The joint powers agreement is a fairly lengthy document. As Henry said, it doesn't have any risk involved, any cost involved to sign that agreement, but it gets us a seat at the table. It turns out that we would be the last seat at the table. That would be for sure. The coalition is limited to a certain number of members of its board of directors. And we would be the last one to fill the last open seat. After that, the directors, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, would be elected at the annual meeting of the coalition. And so we may or may not get a Londonderry rep, depending on, how the votes go. So it's another reason to consider acting on this in a fairly near future. And I think the key thing is here is there's no way to lose on this. It doesn't cost us any money. It doesn't put us at risk. We have the ability to drop out if we see something that we don't like. But we have, I think, a great opportunity to save money for everybody in town, including our own municipal budget, and to get involved in projects that would allow us, for example, to develop the brownfield site up in North Londonderry and other opportunities. So I would encourage you to give it some serious consideration and perhaps task our hardworking town manager with as many hats to put this on as well and take a hard look at it and report back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
So this, from what I remember, so this is not community utility. This is not community power authority yet. This is still in the very early stages. For example, in California, Massachusetts, and New York, those programs have been in place since the late 50s and the early 60s. So several of them are over 50 years old. And they actually run their own utilities.
So that's slightly different. There are municipal utilities where they own the grid also, which I believe you're referring to. And then Massachusetts does have community power programs in a similar fashion. They've had it since the mid-90s, but they've really ramped up over the past 10 years. Same with California, it's had us on the books, but really it's taken off only since 2015. In New York, just in the past couple of years. So the key difference is municipal utility owns the grid and buys power, and we're not owning the grid. This is only about purchasing the electricity. Eversource still owns the grid.
So actually, in New York, what they do is they have a utility commission. They buy directly from their Mohawk, straight from their grid, and that the towns establish their own utility and do their own maintenance. So that's not this.
Right. You would not be doing any grid maintenance under this program.
Okay. All right. What do you want to do?
Move it to the town manager and have him look at it.
Okay. Good.
Sounds like a reasonable.
All right. Send it to our town manager. Have him take a look at it, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Apologize for jumping over you. I just didn't know who you were.
Thank you. Absolutely. You got it.
All right, public comment is now closed. On to public hearing. Take a motion to open a public hearing for 2022-03.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Back to Ms. Gandia.
Good evening. I'm here today to present and answer questions relative to ordinance 202-03, an amendment to the Londonderry zoning ordinance, section 4.2.1.4, relative to the keeping of poultry in the AR1 district. For quite some time, through the planning department and the zoning board, have received requests for the keeping of chickens, basically. And there's been a lot of requests that have been in front of the zoning board and have come through our office for assistance in figuring out what folks can do relative to keeping chickens. Currently, you need 2 acres to have chickens in the AR1 district. This proposed zoning changes that. And we did work a lot with the UNH extension as far as understanding housing and spacing guidelines for livestock. We worked with the planning board quite extensively, and we came up with the following changes that's in front of you. We have defined poultry, and that wasn't defined in our zoning previously, and we are proposing to allow chickens or poultry in lots smaller than 2 acres in the AR1 district with certain conditions, and those conditions are in front of you. If you want me to go through them, I can. The most important thing is the number of poultry. That's a frequently asked question that we do get. Lots 1 to 2 acres in size are permitted to have no more than 12 poultry other than turkeys and no more than 6 turkeys. Lots 0.5 acre to less than 1 acre in size are permitted to have no more than 6 poultry other than turkeys and no turkeys, and no poultry shall be kept on a lot smaller than .5 acre in size. So this did go in front of the planning board with a positive recommendation to the town council.
What was the vote at the planning board?
I believe it was unanimous.
Thank you. Questions from the council?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I thought we said that they could have turkeys.
This was Colleen's rendition of what she believes. So she said that you can have turkeys in lots 1 to 2 acres, but lots .5 to 1,
Okay,
you
so
cannot have turkeys.
under an acre.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If you would like to address things under the poultry ordinance and address the council, now would be the time.
Ladies first.
Kim Streitmatter, and I'm from 3 Pine Street in Londonderry, and I am in support of this change. The only thing that I would like to see if we could address, and I had asked at the planning board, but I didn't know anything about all of the discussions until the final meeting, really, was the requirement to have the top enclosure at all times. I know that for anything over 2 acres, you don't have to have that top enclosure. One of the benefits of having chickens on your property is the tick control and bug control. And if you have to have them always enclosed completely in a small area, then that defeats that purpose. There's also wording in here as far as making sure that they don't escape or they don't trespass, and I think that, on other people's properties, and it's a good recommendation. This is how you can keep your chickens from going onto someone else's property, but I don't think it's necessary to require that if the chickens are not an issue, if they're not a problem on someone else's land. Like you can clip the wings so that they can't fly, and you can just have a fence up and they can't get out. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address poultry or chickens or, sir?
How you doing?
Hello. Name and address,
Leonard
please.
Evans, I live on West Road.
Sir.
We've lived there for 40-plus years, and we've had no problems until a neighbor came up with chickens, which, according to this, they were illegal to have them because there wasn't enough land. The chickens were in Quincy Road, the chickens were in West Road. They were all over our property. We couldn't keep them off. They ended up chewing up our garden twice. We asked the people involved if they would please control their chickens and keep them on their property, and we were told, we'll try. That was it. So we went through a good summer of this back and forth with these people who had the chickens. As far as the fence goes, we mentioned to him that maybe he should put up a fence to keep the chickens out of our yard. And we were told, well, I'll get a lawyer and you'll have to pay for half of the fence, which I kind of laughed at because that's ridiculous. So as far as chickens go, we're tired of it. We've had chicken manure dumped on the edge of our property. This stunk to high heaven once the summer got going. I didn't move here to live in a barnyard. I moved here because it was a nice area. But this is really having that many chickens running around constantly trying to chase. I even had to chase them once with my ATV. They were on the neighbor's land. They were all over Quincy. What are our rights in this? Don't we have some kind of right owning property next to these people that want to let their chickens run free?
What's the enforcement mechanism?
Currently, we do have enforcement mechanism as part of the zoning, and so it basically reads at no time shall a public nuisance be created as to sight, sound, smell, or any other action which would interfere with nearby property owners' rights. So in this case, from the fact pattern that's being presented, they would be able to call code enforcement and have somebody go out and take a look and work with that property owner who's now would be in violation of the livestock section of the zoning as it currently stands.
Okay.
Do we have a fining schedule?
There is, but that's through the building department. There would be.
We did notify the town. They did send a lady down there to check on them, but there was nobody home. What happens is these people go to work, they leave their gate, their chicken coop wide open, and the chickens roam all day long. So we were told she left a letter, and it would have to be 30 days before she could go back to try to talk to them. She was waiting for them to talk to her. They never called her. She went back 30 days, same thing all over again. Nobody there, no chickens in the coop, they're all running around. Again, that doesn't seem like it's much help to us having to wait 60 days to get some kind of an answer what's going on with these chickens.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address poultry and chickens? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Amy Agostino. I live at 6 Willow Lane in Londonderry. I'm here in support of the revised ordinance. I've been waiting 18 years for this. I'm sorry that this gentleman seems to have a really unfortunate experience, but chickens don't have to be a nuisance. They're really pretty easy care, with some care. A lot of major cities allow chickens, including New York City, LA, Miami, Baltimore, Nashua, and Manchester allow chickens. I have friends in other states with yards no bigger than this room who successfully keep chickens well without them being a nuisance. I do want to actually emphasize the same thing. The way the ordinance is written, there is a requirement for them to be in like basically a locked enclosure with a roof 24/7. I would love to see that adapted. I think probably that came about because the current temporary emergency recommendations from UNH Extension with the avian flu happening are to keep your chickens underneath a roof if you've got a lot of wild poultry that you might be exposed to. But in general, I really would love to actually see them allowed out from a roof, but fenced. And fencing of 3 or 4 feet will usually adequately contain chickens. The breeds that do well in our winters and survive the cold tend to be the heavier breeds that aren't very flighty to begin with. Most of them won't clear a 3 or 4 foot fence. Again, with the benefits of chickens, they eat ticks, termites, ants, slugs, lawn grubs, grasshoppers, among many other things. And that benefit is kind of negated by keeping them locked up under a roof 24/7. Fresh eggs and food security are a lovely benefit of chickens. If we've learned anything over the past couple of years, it's the importance of local food sources, and it doesn't get any more local than your backyard. Hens are less noisy than the barky dogs that live near me, and their droppings can be composted and used for gardening. So they're really not a waste product. They can be a resource. A small flock of chickens actually produces less waste than an average-sized dog. All right, I will stop with the notes, but strongly in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the poultry ordinance? So just, out of curiosity, through a quick Google search, in order to have chickens in New York City, you have to have a domestic animal health permit. You're not allowed to have any roosters. You're only allowed to have hens, and they have to be in an enclosure. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what New York City thought about chickens. So it seems like they have a little bit more enforcement authority and a little bit more control. How did we get here? I mean, we've had 2 acres for as long as probably anybody can remember. What got us here? Do we know?
I believe what put us in this position is a request to the zoning board. They have received numerous requests for reductions in lot size or a variance to the 2-lot minimum requirement for chickens. I know Councilor Paul attends those meetings, and she brought that to the attention of the planning board and to staff, and the planning board addressed it, and they came up with this. And as far as, if I could just divert for 1 second, the enclosure, keeping them enclosed was, I believe, part of a compromise to folks like the gentleman sitting here who did have complaints about chickens going on his or her property. So that keeping them enclosed, and that would be like we have a wire mesh roofing is acceptable, was to, because the lots are smaller, to address those concerns. So it was like a middle of the road compromise. That's what the enclosure part came from. And I believe, to go back to where we come, I think it was based on Councilor Paul's suggestion, and the planning board agreed to entertain that, and they worked on developing this ordinance, which puts us in front of you now.
Okay. Has the ZBA been denying the permits?
Some they have, and some they grant. And I think as part of what they're looking at lot sizes, they're looking at how many right-of-ways the property may abut, what's in surrounding properties. They have granted them, if there's a conservation land behind a property that's less than 2 acres, those tend to be granted. And again, it's all fact-specific, but some they do deny.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to make a comment. I think it's terrible that the gentleman had to go through that, but I'm going to compare this to dogs. It's all, people and/or kids. I mean, it's all on how we parent our kids or our dogs or our chickens and how we take care of them. I mean, you either are a good parent, you don't let your kid run around the whole place ripping things apart, or you don't let your dog off lead in a busy place when you know that they're going to be in a bad situation. I feel it's the same thing for chicken. Unfortunately, those people that you have next to you are not good stewards of the chicken, and I want to think or feel that they may be not the norm. And I do think that they're better free, but to get it done and to get it moving forward, you can put your coop on wheels and move it around your yard. So that would kind of help you with your getting the whole yard done with the chickens that you have. But I just think it's been a lot of people come to the ZBA, and it takes a lot of time for them to go through it. And so I thought that this would be a good thing to bring forward and try to find a happy medium to it moving forward. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, I think our enforcement issue is weak. I think we need to go back and look at the enforcement issue and tighten that up really tight.
So, the Merrills have been raising chickens for as long as anybody can remember in this town, and they still sell eggs today. Mr. Merrill may correct me, but in, 30 years, I've never seen a chicken out at the Merrill farm, ever. So, and as someone who actually goes to Delaware and sells software to these chicken hatcheries and manufacturing plants and everything else, there is actually mechanisms in place for control. And, while none of us may want to see the actual manufacturing process of chicken, they do have very stringent, ways of controlling the birds. Yes.
Are they chicken coops and fenced-in areas still subject to standard setbacks?
Yes, so 25 feet from the setback.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm more or less with Jim. I want to see, I'm sorry, I'll just, 1 second and I'll have you come on up. If we're going to move forward with this, and I want to see some stronger language around enforcement. Yes, sir. And that was an if.
How are you?
Good, how are you? May I have your name and address, please?
Chris Evans, 51 Sanborn.
Thank you, sir.
Couple things. Half an acre. Your house is pretty much in the middle of a half an acre. So if you're going to be 25 feet from the neighbors, that coop's got to be pretty much on top of your house.
Yep, you're right.
Okay? Two, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law have chickens, and they are never in the coop. They can't keep them in the coop for the life of them. They're everywhere. They're in the street. They go to the bathroom everywhere. You get feathers. They're kind of a dirty animal. I understand people like chickens, and that's cool, but, half an acre, I think, it's a bit small to have these chickens.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, that's where I stand. What would you all like to do? So do we want to see stronger language and send it back and have them come back with something that's a little bit stronger around enforcement?
I do, because you take a look at this, John, and the people that go out to try to enforce it, what are they looking at?
Yeah,
It's weak, John. I think if we could really take a look at that and provide the people that go out on these violations more of an outline and a better understanding, I think that would go a long way.
half an acre is what, 100 by 100? 200 by, I can't remember.
200 by 200.
200 by 200. Is that half an acre? 200 by 200. So you gotta have 180 foot of frontage to build in this town.
18,000 square feet.
Well, half an acre is not a lot of room. Not for this town.
Well, keep in mind, not everybody's gonna have them either. It's not gonna be every house has a chicken coop. I don't think that everybody wants to have a chicken coop.
Question, Laura. Some of our surrounding towns, what's their regulations for?
Litchfield, they don't have any.
Okay.
Pelham, they don't have any. Manchester does. So you're finding a mixed bag of
Yeah.
different ones. So some have none at all.
Yeah.
And then you have people that are like us. We tend to have the more stringent with the 2 acre. Some of them are 1.5. So we tend to fall on that side of being a little bit more stringent than other surrounding communities.
So I guess what we're hearing here is that if we're going to move forward, and that's an if, we want to see a lot stronger enforcement action.
Can I interject, John?
I understand that the state will tell us what we can and we can't do. Then we may not change the ordinance.
Can I ask a question just for guidance
Of
for staff?
course.
Currently, right now, as the ordinance stands, the enforcement mechanism that addresses issues that come up of sight and smell, it reads, "At no time shall a public nuisance be created as to sight, sound, smell, or any other action which would interfere with nearby property owners' rights." And I wasn't here when this was drafted, but I believe that was created as such just to be the way it is, to have a little bit of vagueness, to allow code enforcement to come in and say, okay, a public nuisance could be this and this. Are you looking for something different from that, or just, I'm just trying to understand exactly, because that's the enforcement mechanism now that I think was purposely created to give code enforcement that ability to be like, okay, a chicken went over once, is that really a public nuisance? But it's going over 4 times, now I can determine that's a public nuisance.
And I understand what you're saying, but where is the point where it just gets dragged out? For 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and it keeps on going. I mean, people, we need to have, we need to come to a conclusion.
And I understand that, and that may be not a change in the zoning ordinance, but understanding the code enforcement process better. And I'm not in that department, so I don't understand their process, like if they send a letter, if they have to wait 30 days, and what happens next. I'm not familiar with that process, because that's not part of the planning. So we could have somebody come in from enforcement to kind of explain the process, to go over what they actually do. And then if that isn't sufficient, then we could add more language into the zoning to do that, if that's the direction the council wants to go.
I would agree, if I could interject for just 1 second, as another lawyer in the room, if you will. So I'm also not super familiar with the code enforcement process and what the requisite number of days is for X, Y, and Z in order to take action. However, I would suggest, as Laura suggested, that I'm not sure the council wants to tighten up the language, if you will, because already we want to leave the code enforcement the discretion to take action. So I think it would be difficult to spell out, in this situation you do X, in this situation you do Y. In fact, this benefits the town the most, the way that it's written right now with regard to
Then perhaps it
enforcement.
needs to be done by the animal control officer and not by code enforcement.
Yeah.
So that a sworn police officer is going there.
Again, I think that's a function of looking at the code enforcement procedures and working hand in hand with the police department. I don't know that it would necessarily be codified in the zoning ordinance, having to do with how many chickens you can have and the number, or in the size of the property.
Why don't we have someone come in and explain it to us?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the one gentleman said, you've got to look at the rights for everybody.
Yes.
It can't just be for the people who have the chickens, it's got to be people who don't have the chickens.
And we just have to be careful that I don't like you, you happen to have chickens, and so I put all these complaints and say this, that, and the other thing, and then it becomes you know, not a nice thing because the two neighbors don't. And I've seen that happen with dogs where people,
But I think we need to put it out there.
no, I agree,
our code
but that won't
enforcement is and
change,
why.
that won't change the ordinance.
Well, I think what we're looking at is how do we enforce it?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's,
Right,
with
but
every one
that's
of these
not-
ordinances, that's the problem we always have. It's always about enforcement. It's like speeding in town. It's an enforcement issue.
Lisa,
But the-
if I may, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
So if I believe if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is to not change the language in the enforcement because it would remove essentially the discretion of the individual.
Of the code enforcement department, if you will. Yeah, the code enforcement officer.
And what I believe I hear, Jim, what you're saying is just we would like some more, you would like some more information on what's the policy of enforcement.
Exactly. And why can't, and I'm just curious, why can't we put that policy of enforcement into the zoning reg? So when someone comes up here and says, well, I got chickens here, and someone says, well, you gotta go to code enforcement. Why don't we have it as part of the reg? I don't understand that.
And we don't
It
know,
pretty much will give the people what they need to know about the enforcement, instead of going to another area to find it. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if it can be done or it's legal, but I think it's something we should look into.
and we don't know if it has to be the building department or the
Correct.
ACO. And that's something we can look into.
Sure. Yep.
All right. So we'll table this until our next meeting on June 6th. Everyone in agreement?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll table it till then. So ladies and gentlemen, what we're doing is we're tabling the ordinance to June 6th. What we're asking the staff to do is to go back and to find out more information for us about how we would actually enforce an ordinance if we made a change to the ordinance. If we, and we may not change it, we may leave it the same. It may go down to a half an acre, it may stay at an acre. But what we're looking for is some sort of schedule of fees. The maximum fine in the state of New Hampshire, if I remember correctly, is $1,000. We have to make sure that we're operating within the regulations of the state law. So what we're looking for is stronger enforcement action if we're going to make a change. Before I close the public hearing, does anyone have any questions? Yes?
I just have one question on, right now, the ordinance states that you can have chickens without any enclosures, just like that gentleman was referring to where he had an issue. What is the enforcement on that? Because if we need to specify the enforcement just to change it so that person who has an acre of land could have chickens, I would think that the enforcement, and this ordinance change does not affect anything for the 2 acres, so that gentleman won't be affected at all anyway. But,
We'll see.
yeah, so the enforcement part of it is for the whole ordinance, or is it just for the change?
Well,
Because I don't think
that's
that-
what we're seeking information on. Enforcement is generally across an entire ordinance.
Right,
What areas will be enforced will be defined within the ordinance.
which I believe today, I'm thinking it isn't. So that would be.
We're getting strong feelings here that we don't have strong enforcement today, yes.
Okay,
So we're going to do some more homework.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to just say one more thing. I had a long conversation with Kit Plummer, a local farmer, who was telling me about how Londonderry really was a big chicken town at one time, big chicken farm. And he has over 2 acres, but if you put these enforcements in on people with 2 acres, you are going to get farmers on the reverse of being upset about being told how they can work with their livestock when they're working within the rules of UNH and the state.
It's unlikely we're going to make any changes, but I don't want to tell people that we're going to do
No,
something.
I'm just saying that this could be a very slippery road if we,
Well, the good news is if you go past Kit's farm, you don't see too many chickens, do you?
no, but
'Cause
like I said, I have
'cause he-
chickens, you
'cause
never
he's a-
see
'cause
them.
he's a farmer.
Right.
Unfortunately, ordinances are put in place for people who don't follow the rules.
That's
If
what I was-
everybody followed the rules, we wouldn't need any ordinances.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You know, we could take all the stop signs down and the speed limit signs down and everything. But that's just not the case. I'm going to take a motion to close ordinance 2022-03.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed for that ordinance. Next ordinance is ordinance 2022-04, an amendment to the Londonderry zoning ordinance establishing a groundwater protection overlay district, section 4.6.8, presented by Ms. Gandia. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Public hearing is open. Ms. Gandia.
Good evening. I am here to present ordinance number 2022-4, an amendment to the Londonderry zoning ordinance establishing a groundwater protection overlay district, section 4.6.8. This has come to you through many meetings, that through the planning board and through input from the town, recognizing the importance of groundwater. So the Londonderry Planning Board recognizes that groundwater is a critical natural and economic resource, a frequently utilized source of drinking water, and an integral part of the hydrologic system. And the proposed groundwater overlay district will provide the regulatory tool to protect the wellhead protection areas associated with the public water systems within the town of Londonderry. There is a state model ordinance that we have adopted the language that's in front of you from. And this model ordinance balances land development with water supply protection needs, limits high-risk uses, establishes a district boundary based upon technical studies delineating watersheds, wellhead protection areas in our case, and requires buffers, setbacks, and measurable performance standards related to stormwater management and control of regulated substances. The New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Drinking Water and Groundwater Bureau administers the New Hampshire Drinking Water Source Protection Program, which provides regulatory oversight and non-regulatory assistance to protect groundwater sources and public and private drinking water. And again, those are the folks that have helped draft the ordinance that we have used as the basis for ours. And the purpose of the ordinance is to preserve, maintain, and protect from contamination and existing and potential groundwater and surface water drinking water supplies used by public water suppliers. So you do have in front of you the groundwater ordinance and a proposed groundwater ordinance zone map.
Questions from the council?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so when we make this, brought to my head when we were talking about the chickens, when we make a change to an ordinance, such an important one like groundwater, right? Or update an ordinance like this, do we have a mechanism that would make people who are pre-existing and maybe not up to snuff to the new regulations, do we have a trigger to make sure that those people get up to speed, so to protect the, do you know what I'm saying? So if you have a containment that's been behind, and we've had 3 updates, and you have not done anything to this, do we have something to say, you know what, to the business, you have to improve this or this?
Yes, so this particular one, section that we're thinking of enacting, has for maintenance and inspections, so 4.6.8.14 talks about having inspections to verify compliance with the performance standards. Such inspections shall be performed by the code enforcement officers at reasonable times with prior notice to the landowners.
Okay, but they would have to bring it up to code, the new code.
Right, well, that would be for that, but you do have existing non-conforming uses that wouldn't be subject to that. So if you look at section 4.6.8.9, existing non-conforming uses may continue without expanding or changing to another non-conforming use, but must be in compliance with all applicable state and federal requirements, including the environmental 401, the best management practice rules. So they would have to be in compliance with that, which would trigger some of those performance standards that they
Okay.
would now have to become
I'm
in
just, like,
compliance.
when, oops.
In other words, they're grandfathered.
Yeah, but I mean, this is, to me, way more important and serious than But so to making sure that we have some sort of way of pushing them to do what they have to do in order to make sure that their contaminants doesn't leach out from where they are.
And we would with this, because this talks about existing uses are grandfathered, but they would still be subject to being in compliance with the applicable state and federal requirements, which is the best management practice rules from the state.
So if somebody who's grandfathered in, right, they have in the federal, and now they're not with anything, but they're still grandfathered in, they don't have to do anything? Or do we have a way to say, you know, you've been grandfathered for this long, and now you have to do something?
You've been grandfathered for your use, the way this is written, you've been grandfathered for the use, but you still
Use
need to
only.
be in compliance with
Okay.
that particular best management
Or if they have
practice.
a change of use, goes away.
Right, I understood that, but the ones that, like, so they don't change their use, but they're, you know, they're old and they're worn out containment areas that, you know, could be breaking down and seeping out. That was my concern,
And that
to
would-
make sure that we have some protection there and some teeth to go and say, hey, you really, I mean, I don't want to hurt a business, but I also don't want to poison people.
And the way this is written, they would need, again, they would need to be in compliance with the applicable state, federal requirements, including that state requirement through New Hampshire DES, the best management practice rules.
And we only put it on top of the wellheads? Is that what we did?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your
The
question.
yellow is on the map.
Right.
We didn't cover all groundwater, we just said,
Exactly, just the well, and we didn't actually show where the wellheads are. That's why you see some have a more round circle to it and others don't, because it could be 2 wellheads, but some of that information is confidential, so we can't put the actual location of the wellhead on there. So that's why you
Okay.
see some irregular shapes.
I understand that. My only thing is I would like to see it over the whole town. Because water moves underground, and I said that at planning too, so.
Right, and I think that's what happened at planning. We had a different map, and then it was at the suggestion of the planning board to kind of step back a little bit. Let's get this in place as a first step and move forward to see what else we can do in the future.
Yeah, but I still want to be on the record as saying,
Sure.
I feel that all groundwater, period, should be protected. That's all.
Anything, gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address this ordinance? Yes, sir.
How you doing? Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. I think this is very important. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. But I would like to ask, and I don't have, can I take a look at that? So we have some yellow areas here, kind of non-specific from what I see. There are wellhead protection areas throughout the town of Londonderry. And they are, I think planning has maps of those. They've been established. The thing about being confidential, well, that's fine. You want to protect them, I understand. But we have we had wellhead protection areas throughout the town that are not shown on here. And I think we really need to include those in perhaps this ordinance. Or we at least need to look at them. As we know, we have a lot of issues with water contamination throughout the town of Londonderry. We're trying to work on that with the New Hampshire DES, the EPA, and others. But we really need to look at all the wellhead protection areas. Some of them overlap. So I think this is definitely in the right direction. I think we're moving in the right direction. But I think we need to include all the known wellhead protection areas. We have a lot of condominiums, we have a lot of apartments that have their own water system, they have their own wells, and some of them are contaminated. We need to know about this, not me, but the town. And so, and code enforcement is going to make sure that everything is taken care of here. Code enforcement is the building department, is that right?
Yes.
Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for groundwater? Yes?
Ann Champa, excuse me, Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I have a question for Laura. Do you mind if I ask?
Please.
Laura, you said some wellhead locations are confidential. Why would that be?
That is for public infrastructure safety reasons. New Hampshire DES lets Amy have certain information so she can do what she needs to do, but we're not allowed to release certain information to the public.
So no one knows the location to contaminate the supply on purpose or attack the water supply.
Okay, thank you very much.
But we have those locations.
I don't have
In-house?
access to it. I want to say, I believe Amy has limited information that I don't have access to, but she
Also
does have
federal
information.
guidelines.
Yeah, no, I get it, I get it.
Right.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else this evening for public comment? All right, what do you want to do? It's up to you guys.
Well, I say we
Forward,
move it
make a
forward.
motion.
I say we
Whatever you
move it,
wanna do.
all right, I make a motion to move this forward.
So I have a motion on the floor to approve ordinance 202204. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Ordinance is approved.
And hopefully we can move that other part forward. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I forget to do something here? I did. Go that way, please, with that. Yep. My agenda. All right, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Next order of business is the Senior Affairs Director. We're going to take that, council, just so you know, we're going to take that in a non-public session so we can actually meet the Senior Affairs Director. And, versus just coming in and meeting her for the first time here, in case you have any questions.
Do we have a new senior director?
So Kathy Blash is retiring as of June 6th.
I had no idea.
The staff, well, that's why I'm going to go to
June 10th, yep.
next meeting, we're going to go to a non-public so we can talk about it.
Okay.
And that's a personnel piece and,
Yeah, no, I just had,
yeah, well, I got this and I went, you know what? We probably need to have a conversation about this.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Consider the department head, John,
It is,
so we have to make the final approval.
yes. Okay, order 2022-08, an order relative to the expenditure of roadway maintenance trust funds. Mr. Trier.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Trotter. So I'm here this evening to discuss Order 2022-08, an order relative to the expenditure of roadway maintenance trust funds. So the $1.5 million that I'm requesting authorization from the town council to expend is for the replacement of the existing 96-inch corrugated metal pipe culvert on Harvey Road.
Only $1.5 million?
That's it.
That's
Would've
it, huh?
been 2.3 with
Just
a
a
bridge.
little, for some water moving under Harvey Road?
That's it.
Great.
So if I can get everybody's understanding, heading north on Harvey Road, go past Plainview. On the left-hand side is the runway. The large culvert, large box culvert that you see on your left with the trash grate to it, trash rack to it, that is carrying Little Cohos Brook. And when you see that, you're driving over that 96-inch
So
circular.
we have been kind of holding that together with rubber bands and paper clips and chewing gum for a
Bubble
number of
gum.
years, right?
Yeah.
One
So,
of those up there collapsed, but that was one further to the to the west of the runway, it
Well,
comes out that way, right?
Yeah, that one was actually, had been washed out in the Mother's Day floods a
Right.
number of years ago.
So I guess we should probably do something before we wash out another one in the floods.
That's what we're looking to do.
Questions for Mr. Chartier?
Yeah, we have a corrugated pipe under there now.
Correct.
Will that change?
It'll be a lined corrugated metal pipe.
Okay. And is the size going to change? I mean,
No,
what,
no, again, so jumping through the hoops,
right?
the turtles, snakes, the FAA, because of the proximity to the runway, cranes doing the work, Fish and Game, New Hampshire Heritage. We jump through all the hoops, floodplain, maintaining 100-year storm flow capacity through the culvert, dealing with 3 different abutters out there. One abutter it's in a trust fund of 4 different individuals, 2 on the west coast of the United States, 2 locally here, dealing with the airport authority. It's been a long time coming.
And once we approve these funds, if we do, it's not up to me. How's the traffic flow going to work? I mean, that runs over the width of the road.
Correct.
So how logistically for the public, how logistically is that going to work?
So what'll end up happening is that the existing 16-inch water main, is Manchester Water that supplies, again, portions of northern Londonderry, that's going to be relocated as well. So there was a coordination with Manchester Water as well. So what'll end up happening is the roadway itself, the initial phase, the roadway will shift to the to the east. Heading north, it shifts to the east, to the right. It'll be a signalized one-way traffic.
Similar to the Ash Street Bridge when they did that work? John?
Correct, yeah. I will reach out to FedEx and all those good customers or tax-paying people and
Yep.
let them know what the duration is. So once I get the go-ahead to this, I'll be in contact with the contractor so that he can start putting together his schedule, ordering his materials, and we'll get going. The hope is to get it done this construction season. Like John says, it's been a long time coming.
Well, it's a good thing we saved our money. Questions? Questions, Deb? Anything? I'll accept the motion to approve 2022-08.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Resolution 2022-07, the acceptance of unanticipated revenue under RSA 31:95-B. Hi, Justin. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Yourself?
Good, thank you. So we have $1,140 from the rabies clinic.
Correct. This was mainly talked about at the last meeting. However, the resolution was not presented, so this is just to formally accept the funds.
Does anyone have any questions? I'll accept the motion for Resolution 2022-07 to be approved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative, and we are approved. Old business, this is going off to June 30th, ordinance 2022-05. The ordinance creating commercial industrial tax incentive programs, that's put off till the next meeting. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as presented for May 9th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Next thing is, minutes are accepted. So CIP committee appointments. All right, so I have been on this committee since sometime around 2006 or 2007. Joe said he was interested in doing it. So if we're good with it, he's not here.
See what happens when you don't show.
As long as he shows up to the meeting.
Yeah, he's in Georgia. I called
I
me
mean,
on
is he
Sunday.
gonna be able to make the meetings?
Well, there's 2, so I'm hoping he can. Listen,
Should we put an alternate, just in case he can't? I don't
Sure.
want the job, but maybe one of these guys do.
You guys want to be a backup to Joe there,
Just in
Chad, on
case.
CIP?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to have Joe as the primary on CIP and Chad as the secondary on CIP. And I will happily accept my retirement from the CIP committee after 17 years.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative, and we move forward. Liaison reports. Anything new from the council?
Just to let you all know that the Green Team finally got their nonprofit status, so we are now an official nonprofit,
Fantastic.
so we can move forward with that. And we had a great energy meeting with Dave. He brought so much information to us, it was overwhelming. We also had the state talk to us about electric cars and charging stations, also about the money that was available to the schools for electric buses and supplying electric buses. I guess Nashua now has them. And I forwarded the information to the school board and to Peter. Peter Curl contacted me today and said they would, talk it over with the bus terminal people and SR something or other and see if the finances work out, if it's something they may look at to save us some finances there.
Fantastic. Anything else? The town manager's on vacation. It's his wedding anniversary, so happy anniversary. Lisa?
Just a couple things, Mr. Chair. First thing, I wanted to ask Kirby for confirmation. With regard to the CIP members, does the council have to mention all of the members and to accept them, or just the council liaisons?
I don't recall ever doing them in the past. I only recall appointing our individual
liaison.
liaison.
That's it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to do it a different way, but I don't recall doing it the other way.
Either way.
Amy left me with the impression that it was the all members.
Do you have the names of the rest of the members? Because I'm happy to.
memo packet in the, you don't have to, you've never done that like that.
Make a motion to approve the,
That's the impression I was under from Amy.
oh, okay.
Could be wrong.
Not gonna hurt.
So where is my list of people?
I have it right here. If you'd like me
Go ahead and make a motion then.
All right, do you want me to read the names or no?
Yes, please.
All right, so council rep is Joe Green, myself as an alternate. School board rep is Mr. Slater, Kevin Gray is an alternate. BudCom is Steve Bro, the chair. Planning board reps is Jake Butler and Jeff Pintera.
That sounds like everybody, right?
Yep.
All right, what's up the motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, if your name has been mentioned, please see the clerk to be sworn in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I could
Thanks.
mention just one more thing, the Leadership Londonderry application period has been extended to July 8th. I know it's a very busy time for everyone in town, particularly with those with kids in the schools, so we've extended it July 8th, and the information can be found right on the front page of the website under Town News. Thank you.
All righty. Our next meeting is June 6th at 7 PM. And our next meeting after that is June 20th. Is there anything further from the council at 7 PM? Anything further? I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now adjourned for the evening, and hopefully the Celtics will play better tonight.